What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Around the Table Sports. Today we're going to talk about Payton Page and where he decided to commit to play college football. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We do consistent content related to college football, high school football, NFL, and you know with the NBA coming back, we will absolutely be covering that. But let's get back into Payton Page, the 6'4", 360-pound defensive tackle out of North Carolina, who ranks 80th in the nation, who's the 7th best defensive tackle and the 4th best player out of North Carolina. And you heard me right, 6'4", 360 pounds. This dude is a prototypical run stuffer. I mean, as he sits right now, if he can carry weight good, he can already come in and be a rotational player anywhere in the country because of that massive size. And when you watch his tape, he has some development to go as far as form and technique with other sort of things other than a power rush. But man, when you watch his tape and you see how effective his power rush is against double teams and just going so quick from start to the backfield, you see that he has a lot of potential, not only as a run stopper, but if he gets his technique right, he could actually be a serviceable interior pass rusher. I mean, this kid has a lot of upside, but let's get into where he ended up going. As most of you are probably familiar with right now, he ended up committing to Clemson. Now, before this, he had a top 3 of Clemson, North Carolina, and Tennessee. 2 of those 3 programs have had incredibly surprisingly good recruiting periods up to this point. Clemson flipping Drake May from North Carolina, and Tennessee getting Terence Lewis as their blue chip guy in the class who looks to be a lock at the outside linebacker position. But what does this mean for Clemson? Well, it pushes them over to 260.07 points. So what this means is at number 4, they have Ohio State 1, Alabama 2, Oregon 3, Clemson 4. And I know a lot of you are surprised with that Oregon 3, but don't count them out to stay at 3. They are in the running for some really high-profile guys. And if word on the street is correct, JT Tumaleo, who's the number 2 strong side defensive end in the class, has been really considering Oregon, and they already have Troy Franklin, one of the top receivers in the nation. But Clemson right now being at number 4, they're not out of the running either for a lot of top guys. I mean, Clemson is going to be gunning for that number 3 spot, and obviously they're going to be gunning for Ohio State and Alabama at number 1 and 2, but if I'm being very honest, with Ohio State and Bama, the trajectory they're on, the guys that they still have left that are considering them, and just kind of the general word on the street as to how seriously they are being considered, they still have a serviceable lead. Alabama at 20 points over Clemson right now, and I mean Ohio State at over 40 points above Clemson's point total right now. But let's talk about who Clemson is really in the running for right now, and we're going to focus mainly on the 5-star guys because there's a few of them that I think Clemson could absolutely nab. One name we've talked about previously on this channel, and I think it's not likely that they get him, and we'll start with him. Jaquinski McKinstry out of Alabama. Now, he wants to be a 2-sport athlete. That's very important to him. Nick Saban and Alabama have given him the go-ahead. Auburn has done the same thing, and I'd imagine Clemson as well. He has some other schools listed, but from what I understand, this is really a 3-team race between Auburn, Alabama, and Clemson. Now, I have to be honest, Clemson is kind of the dark horse in that race, and I think it's going to remain that way, with Alabama going to be having pretty deep need at the cornerback position. The standard of Alabama is 5-star. It only makes sense that they are pursuing Jason Marshall the way they are Jaquinski McKinstry, but specifically McKinstry because he's an in-state guy, and it looks to be the alternative being Auburn. And it's like we talked about a while back in that Dak Prescott video, that what I thought the Cowboys did in their draft was so genius, where not only did they draft CeeDee Lamb, even though they didn't really need him, but he made their offense better. They hurt the Philadelphia Eagles by not allowing them to draft CeeDee Lamb. So this is playing chess, not checkers. And that's kind of what Bama and Auburn are both thinking right now. They both absolutely want and need Jaquinski McKinstry, but it's just as much about making sure that the other location doesn't get him. So I think both of those schools are going to be after him way too much. Now, the other one that's interesting is Tristan Lay. Now, Tristan Lay, we talked about the other day on this channel. He released his top 5. I think that it's more likely that Ohio State lands him at this point. Ohio State has really looked good But from what I'm understanding, Clemson has been more in the running than even possibly I let on in the previous video. He seems to be very heavily considering Clemson, but also I think it's important to note that LSU is there as well. We talked about how he was cognizant of the fact that Alabama, 10 of the last 12 tackles have been drafted in the first round. He wants to be developed. So Tristan Lay's kind of wide open. I still think Clemson might be a bit of a long shot behind an OU, an LSU, an Alabama, or even an Ohio State. But it is also Clemson, and they have a great brand. They have a really good recent history, and we know that recruiting is based off of a lot of recency bias, and deservedly so. Everybody wants to go where they're going to be developed. Clemson has a history of developing them. But so does Ohio State, and so does Alabama. And that comment about 10 of the last 12 tackles going in the first round is interesting, because that shows how serious he is about that one key thing. And sure, a lot of guys say it, but it's another thing to go and research exactly who they were and where they got drafted. That statement alone leads me to think that he's probably going Ohio State or Bama just because of the pedigree that they've been putting out. OU could also be it. We talked about that with the offense. So they still are in the running for those two guys. I don't know that it's super likely that they get either of them. But regardless, what Clemson gets in Payton Page is instant production freshman year to plug into that from that defensive line, and he can just plug holes. I mean, running back gaps are going to be instantly closed wherever he is, and that sort of stuff just makes your linebackers' jobs all the easier. They know that, okay, well, that gap is, no one's getting through there, so I can go here or here. He looks to be an impact player, and I think that he actually is going to, if God willing that there is a season this year, he's a guy that you can see play above his rating this year. So watch out for the name Payton Page and an absolute elite grab for Clemson. And that does it for today's video. Guys, once again, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. We got a lot more content planned, and we have episode 3 of the college football quarterback competition coming soon, and we will be focusing on OU. I don't know how much of a quarterback competition it's going to be, but both these guys are insanely fun to watch and kind of dissect. That's it. See ya.